Hey, Rich, it says we're on YouTube, but I still see we're practicing. There we go. Okay. Thank you. All right, hello everyone. Looks like we have about 8 to 10 people joining so far. We'll get started in a couple minutes. This is Ellen Burns-Johnson. I'm kind of your host for today, although you'll hear voices of Ethan Edwards and Christopher Allen today as well. We're kind of getting started. If you're able to hear me, and I'll repeat this message a couple times, but if you're able to hear me, go ahead and test out the chat window. Just say hello to your fellow attendees. Hello from Omaha. Hi, Karen. Thank you. We'll have everyone in kind of silent attendee mode right now. If you have questions, go ahead and type them in the chat. One thing I will ask everyone to do as we're getting started is make sure that your chat is set to all panelists and attendees. Right now, we have a couple people who are sending in their greetings just to the panelists. And if you do that, then the rest of your attendees won't be able to tell you're from. You're even there. There we go. Stephanie got it. Eric McCoy, it looks like you also have yours set to all panelists. You might want to check that a little bit. If you want to send something privately, then you can set that back to all panelists. But it's really nice to be able to connect with the other attendees because we're from all different places. So we've got a couple people from different places around the U.S. here, a couple people from Atlanta. We've Rich from Chicago. Christopher and I are here in sunny but chilly Minnesota. Got a lot of snow on the ground so far. It's been kind of windy. Hi, David. David, if you're there, check to see if your chat window is set to all panelists or all panelists and attendees. You probably want it to be all panelists and attendees so that everyone on the webinar can see your message. All right. So let's go ahead and get started with just kind of some of our housekeeping items. Welcome to our webinar today. This will be a short webinar, about 30 minutes, and then after we're done with the presentation, we'll stick around to do an open-ended Q&A. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat window as we're going through the session. If we don't get to your question, or if you have additional questions that come up that you weren't able to put into chat, stick around for a few minutes at the end of the session, and we will have an open forum Q&A about the Allen Academy. For now then, again, I mentioned this a couple times, but we'll be using the chat feature in Zoom instead of using our conversation, instead of using audio. So chat with anybody you'd like to as the webinar progresses. I will be monitoring the chat window for any questions that you have. So if you have a question for Christopher or a question for Ethan, go ahead, type that in the chat window, and I'll make sure to queue that up for our panelists as we continue. Okay, with that then, I'd like to introduce our panelists for today. My name is Ellen Burns-Johnson, and again, I'll be kind of acting as your host, and I'll be monitoring the chat window. We also have Christopher Allen, who is VP of Innovation here at Allen Interactions, and Ethan Edwards, who is a Chief Instructional Strategist at Allen Interactions and one of our academic deans and instructors for the Allen Academy. Christopher and Ethan, welcome.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So Christopher, maybe we could start by just giving a quick overview of why we started the Allen Academy.
Sure. So for those of you who are on the webinar today that might not know a whole lot about Allen Interactions, we've been around for 27 years. And in the early few years of the history of Allen Interactions, we provided primarily corporate strategy on learning for our clients, and we did a lot of training in the authoring tools of the day, how to create really interesting e-learning. And over time, that turned into a pretty neat relationship with ATD, and based on the books that our founder, Dr. Michael Allen, has written, his Guide to E-Learning, the first and the second edition, and many of the other volumes in between, we created professional development curriculum for instructional designers on how to design really interesting learning experiences, how to create really great instruction using e-learning, and on process using the successive approximation model, or SAM, on how to work as a team and build the best learning products possible. We've started the Academy taking a lot of the lessons learned over our 27-year experience teaching these courses, how best to use tools, how to create really great strategy, how to create great e-learning and use the best processes. And, through our time teaching, week-long workshops, through ATD, teaching 3-day workshops, we were really seeing that people were becoming hungry for more. And the more component was an opportunity to practice, using the theory that they had learned in those workshops to work for them, using the authoring tools that they were expected to use back at their job, or the other way around. They had gotten a lot of great practice using the tools, but they didn't have enough theory. And there just wasn't a good spot in today's market for students to get the practice of putting those two things together. And so that's really what we're aiming to do with the Allen Academy is provide a new method that fits and get skills practice that spans everything from theory to implementation to tips and tricks to make that come to life for you using the tools that you're expected, and then recognize that you've gone through an experience as a student that really has changed you, and you've got really professional skills that you can put to work, and it's not just you attended an interesting seminar for a few days. So as I was saying, the Allen Academy features a lot of support and an opportunity to work with experts from Allen Interactions who over our 27-year history have not only taught courses like this, but also done work for our corporate clients in our custom services division and tackling real interesting performance problems with blended learning and e-learning in an interesting way. And those are the folks who you'll be learning from as a part of the Academy. We feature 4 great colleges. So inside the Allen Academy, we have design tracks, tracks for people who are aspiring to be a CLO or a learning executive, folks who want to experiment with serious learning game design and creating interesting games that really follow the rules of performance, and folks who are interested in really digging into how to measure for business impact and for learning impact. So these 4 colleges have programs that are either designed or under development that will provide kind of that same level of rigor where you'll get an opportunity to explore theory and put it to work using the tools that you'll be expected to and create interesting work product that you can share with the rest of your colleagues back at work. Now, it's practical application across all 4 of these colleges. And today, Ethan is going to be talking in depth about his program for the Allen Certified Instructional Professional, really focusing on instructional design and development. And with that, I will pass it over to Ethan to introduce ACIP, or the Allen Certified Instructional Professional Program.
Sorry, I was muted there. Thank you, Christopher. As Christopher said, we have this really robust, broad spectrum of programs, but right out of the gate, we're really focusing on this Instructional Design and Development College, and has at its core this first program, which is Allen Certified Instructional Professional. And as Christopher said, it's a way to combine sort of the design components, the technical software components, and the putting it to practice components that are often dealt with individually, but I think the key and what is so powerful about this is the way that we are integrating them into a single certified experience. So just a little bit about this. I'm actually halfway through one cohort. We're intending to offer this experience several times throughout the year with several starting points. And each cohort will work together through this to 4 different programs, and they may be live or predominantly they'll be engaged in online through distance connection. But the first, it has design and technical components, and we're planning both a storyline and a Captivate experience. So far, the demand has been for storyline, and that's probably what we'll be offering in the next one, and we're still in the process of defining that. But this level 1 credential has 4 courses. First is designing interactivity, followed by building instructional interactions. Designing interactivity is really getting your head around the ideas of interactive learning, about what instructional interactivity is and how do you brainstorm and create experiences that make a difference. That is the foundation for the second course, which is not necessarily a course from the ground of learning storyline, for instance. We expect people to have taken a basic course, and so they know the interface, they know the fundamental aspects of the software. But what we have found is that people are stymied with, how do I create something that isn't just an ordinary test or a very straightforward sort of question? Those are easy to build, but how do I make something feel like something more sophisticated? And so our building instructional interactions is about the software, but really with an eye to revealing some of the really powerful features that you might not figure out working on your own, things that are essential for creating instructional interactivity. We follow that with another design course, and this time we bring in much more of the actual learning theory, what we know about how people learn, how we can design things, some aspects of a more traditional instructional design program, but really focused for creating these highly interactive, engaging experiences. And then the 4th component is what we call the Capstone Project in coaching. And each participant now has an opportunity to take all the things that we've learned in the first 3 courses, pick a topic of their own from their own company or organization, and spend a few weeks building it with coaching and mentoring from our professionals. So, and so at the end of it, everybody should have at least a module, a small module created that puts everything we've learned into practice. So that's our vision. And again, there's 2 strengths. The content of these things are so essential, and they're drawn from all the years of experience we've had working across the board in many organizations and in the military and higher education, and bring all of that together. And then also the practical knowledge of how do you make it real. And so that's what our goal is in this first program. So a little bit more detail. The first course we call a 101 is designing interactivity. And there's really a sort of a foundation course for all the academy programs. And if you've ever heard me speak or Dr. Allen speak, you might well have heard of a little glimpse of what we call CCAF. It's our instructional interactivity model. And we also talk a lot about what it takes to succeed, making sure things memorable and meaningful, and how do we create motivation. But we have enough time in this course to really give each learner a chance to practice those, practice applying them. We have group activities, and we have found that it really is a wonderfully effective way to get people thinking differently about instruction. On the one hand, I don't like this statement, but on the other hand, it's exactly what we're shooting for, is how often people say, after they take the class, I realize I've been doing everything wrong. up till now. That isn't really true. People are working hard and doing good things, but it does put a new filter on what is possible and what we should be shooting for when we design instruction, that I think can actually be, if not life-changing, career-changing. And so that's an exciting part of this content. And so that's just sort of summarize what I was talking about more generally, but it's the content. You can see these things on the web page if you go to find out more about our course. But we do have 2 new programs starting. One is going to be all online starting January 14th, and registration is open for that right now. And of course, it will start with this course. It's a series of 6 2-hour sessions spread out over 3 weeks. Then if you would like, there is another one starting in February that will open in an in-person way in Orlando in conjunction with the training conference event. So if you're intending to go there, it's an opportunity that you could take advantage of both things, and we'll have a second cohort then starting in February. So you can either start online or start in person, but those are our next 2 scheduled opportunities. Whenever you start, the following thing will be building instructional interactions. And this is,
Hey, Ethan?
yeah. Yes.
You get just a quick break for a couple questions. So we got some questions that came in on the panelist channel. The first one is about the difference between kind of the cohort format that you're describing and the 1 to 2 to 3 day certificate classes that are pretty ubiquitous throughout the industry. So I wonder if you could talk for a little bit about whether the 2 to 3 day certificate classes still have merit, and what benefits kind of the cohort format has in comparison to those certificate classes.
Yeah, well, the mode of delivery has a huge impact on what you can do. When you take a 1 to 2 day certificate program, and indeed, if you start our program in the live session, it's going to be a 2-day experience. There's a lot that you can gain by being directly in contact with people. You tend to build better partnerships that last, that you can have that personal connection, and it's a little bit more flexible in terms of adjusting to individual things that occur during the class, because you have more freedom to go off in an environment where we're all together. Now, the shortcoming of that, though, is, and it's always a frustration I've had when I've taught these sorts of seminars, is it's hard to give anybody a real chance to do exercises, because people don't travel a long way and pay tuition to sit in a room and work by themselves for several hours, which is necessary because e-learning takes a lot of thinking. And so the chance for extended or real more meaningful activity exercises is a little bit limited when you're in a compressed 2-day program. On the other hand, when we do it online, the chances and opportunities are a little bit harder to create those individual connections between people, just because we're all sitting spread out all over the world looking at our computers rather than having direct conversations, looking at each other in the eyes and so forth. But it does allow us to adjust the program in a bit that you are expected to do a little bit more homework between sessions. It's not extensive, it's a couple hours at the max, but that time is really precious in making sure that the concepts we're talking about become a little bit better ingrained in your repertoire. So it's hard for me to say which is better. They each have their advantage. But when we talk about cohorts, in either case, it's that extended experience over several months it takes for all 4 courses to be carried out. And in that case, you really do get to know the people, and it helps in order to understand what questions are out and understand that you're not alone, and that we have found that real affinities have developed over time by making sure that the whole program is a unified cohort. So it isn't a whole different group of people in course 1 than in course 2. And that's why we're really, at these first outings, really pushing strongly that people are signing up to take the whole curriculum rather than just taking one course here and there. I hope that answered the nature of the question.
We have a couple more questions, and then I'll let you get back to it.
Sure.
The next one, let's see. Karen asked a question that was pretty quick, and then Mike asked, I think, a more in-depth question that relates to what you were just talking about. But just quickly to get to Karen's question, the course content for this ACIP program, is that drawn from Dr. Allen's books or other sources? Yes, the first course, 101, is largely based on Michael Allen's Guide to E-Learning. Of course, it's stretched out quite a bit and augmented with different examples. But I would say that a good half of it is really digging into CCAF, Instructional Interactivity, which is drawn from a core part of the Michael Allen Guide to E-Learning. So it certainly is a companion to it. It uses it as a great source of, as a reference source. We go way beyond it in terms of trying to articulate what's so special about that approach, but it does. The later courses are more eclectic in being drawn from a wider range of sources in instructional design and game design and so forth. Okay, thanks, Ethan. So let's get to Mike's question. So Mike was asking what differentiates the Allen program from the extended certificate courses that ATD or Yukon Learning are offering. Kind of what's the value proposition? And to clarify a little bit of Mike's question, he also added, hey, we're charging a premium here, but it's not necessarily clear to him why we're doing that. So this might go to both Ethan and Christopher. Explain a little bit about what makes this program more valuable and worth the extra time and cost. Yeah, well, I would say, I'll answer and then let Christopher follow up. A critical part of our philosophy is that these professional courses need to be taught by people who are in the trenches doing this work daily, and not just delivering a course that someone else dreamed up or content that they know superficially but aren't really conversant in as a practitioner. And so we are really standing behind the quality and the depth of experience of our instructors that gives us the confidence also to say that these practicum experiences are going to be really so tightly and authentically connected to what people really should be doing. That is something that across the board, I don't want to malign other programs necessarily, but having been a teacher through ATD for a number of years, I know that that isn't true of all their courses. And you get different instructors all the time. And this idea of having an integrated cohort also really puts it into more of the academy idea that you are with a group of people that you're going to learn together with over time. And we find that's a really strong element in giving you confidence to really explore things and ask the kind of questions you need and so forth. Christopher, anything else you want to add to that I think differentiates our...
Yeah, sure. I think one of the other things that will kind of become evident as you start talking about the other courses in this program is that we're hoping to take students not just, you know, through a rigorous experience where they're getting an opportunity to play and work with some of the best learning theory and how to use the tools, but we're also helping students improve their actual work. And so one of the big hallmarks is as you're moving through each one of these courses, all the way up to the end, where you'll be, you know, your credential will be based on your success in applying learning theory and tools techniques to real work, is that not only will you see that your work has changed and it's in the tenor and color and quality of what you're producing, but I think your coworkers and the students who are learning from your digital and blended curriculum will see that change. And so it's not so much about just gaining a set of letters through a paper certification program, but but really trying to give you enough time, practice, and coaching so that the quality of your work changes in an interesting way. And to do that, you need access, as Ethan was saying, to real practitioners, and an opportunity to get coaching and practice applying.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, Christopher. So kind of going on what Christopher was saying, this might be one that we want to touch on again after we are done talking about the third and fourth courses as well. So Ethan, do you want to continue?
Yeah, one other thing I do want to add is that, and I say this with a great deal of respect for my graduate degree in instructional design, but if you have worked in education area, unfortunately, there is a pretty big disconnect between the theories of instructional design and the practice. And what we've heard multiple times is that people get out of professional training and they're not exactly prepared for the practical aspects of putting what they know to work. And our whole approach to instructional design is that success is getting people to do the right thing at the right time, not following a set of prescribed formats, prescribed settings of we need to have the literal objectives written in a way. And I think there are some programs that sort of follow that slavishly in a way and miss the idea of how do you really change performance. And so we strive to apply that same philosophy that we propose for training into these courses. And so I think these are more active than I think a lot of other comparable programs are, really with an idea, how do you put this to work in a really practical way at every instant that we can do that. Okay, I will move on to the next, the remaining courses real quickly, and then we'll have a few more questions. So after 101, as I said, we do go into how to build interactions. I actually just finished this course in our existing cohort. I'm surprised actually that this is sort of the most exciting thing, because I haven't been teaching software for a while. We used to do authorware a lot, but now we've just finished this course on using Storyline, and the delight that learners got in having the blinders removed, actually, to see how very flexible and powerful these tools are. I think they really feel empowered in a way that they didn't before. And so again, it's that experience we've had that says these are the kind of things you need to know on top of that basic foundation. And so it's really how to use a tool to create these robust interactions. We do these brain teasers, which is a technique we used before, which we give you, say, a final product. This is a screenshot of an example you may well have seen from previous talks, but we provide this and say, you build this. We give all the assets, and it's really a cool puzzle to figure out how to use Storyline with something in mind. And we'd use these to push the boundary of what people are able to do throughout the course. The next course, Designing 103, is more of an advanced course, as I said, bringing in real theories of instruction, some best practices in how to work with SMEs to glean content. What are some strategies for writing for interactivity? It's different than just technical writing. And then how do you make sure that you create interactions where the skills are going to transfer? And then finally, we have the Capstone Project, where you're going to get expert coaching from the Academy instructors. It's real work. You choose what it is. We'll have some guidance and some counseling to make sure you're picking something that is of an appropriate scope that we can do in the time allotted. But you're going to get guidance both on design and on the software from the instructors. And hopefully you're going to be able to bring some of your real work to life and have a great example to show to your own organization to elevate your own authority and position within your training department. So anyway, again, our CCAF is at the core of what we teach, and it's at the core of the experiences that we're creating for the Academy. And then we also are really aware that we want to make sure that this has meaning outside of the Academy. And so Christopher, you can talk a bit about the credentialing that we've been working on.
Sure, and maybe just some of the other questions before I jump into that about the overall duration of this program.
Oh, yeah.
As it's outlined, you know, it ends up being about 3 months worth of experience, you know, spread out over time, so you have an opportunity to practice and reflect, but also, of course, you know, working in and out of the constraints of your current job, which leads to, you know, this ends up being kind of a weighty transformation process where you've got new skills and you've demonstrated that you've transferred those skills into real work that you expect to deliver to the students that you support. With the completion of that capstone and the completion of this program, then we've partnered up with Credential, and we are offering digital credentials that then refer back to evidence that you have taken this program. It's easily transportable, it's easily shared, so that you can you know, point others to your experience and to the skills that you have gained through the Allen Academy. You know, kind of one of the nice bits about once you've earned a credential, and you can easily link it directly to your LinkedIn profile. And if people are interested to understand a little bit more about what that means, they can click directly on that from your LinkedIn profile and get a detail of the program, the skills that you've achieved, and what evidence is there to say that you now hold this digital credential. So it's a nice way, I think, to recognize that you have verified new skills, and there's a neat component that the Acclaim platform through Credential offers, which is the ability to search for open positions and other opportunities based on the credentials and skills that you currently have, which is pretty neat, I think.
Okay, thanks, Christopher. Thanks, Ethan. So we're kind of at the end of our presentation, and we're going to hang on for a few minutes to answer any additional questions that you have. But just to recap really quick, the program that Ethan was describing today, the 4 courses, that's the 3 courses, and then the guided practicum. We have a new cohort starting in January that's available for registration now, so you can go ahead and go to allenacademy.com and check out more details about the different courses and register if you're interested. And then hang on and just either stay tuned for more programs coming in 2020. We're looking at launching some additional certification programs as well as some electives. With that, if you have any final questions, go ahead and type them into the chat. We've got one coming in here right now. This is kind of more broad question, but Ethan and Christopher, maybe you can speak to this one. What sorts of backgrounds in your experience appear to have more immediate success in designing great digital learning experiences?
Well, I would say have tried a lot of applications on the web purported to be training and paid attention and have been critical of them. Not saying that they're bad, but being aware of knowing that some things work and some things don't. Because the first thing is an awareness that there is a difference. And so it helps to have some of that experience under your belt, just awareness. It is, you know, and this is the biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges, is that the skills to be a good designer are not always developed at the same time as the skills to be a good developer. And some people find themselves trapped, or I think they self-limit themselves because they have never been a developer before and they think, I can't do it. And so I do encourage you to get experience. There are free trials of the software. So you can get a 60-day free trial of Storyline, and there are any number of really pretty good YouTube videos that help you get going on some things, and just try to see how you can put some things together and just become familiar with the whole idea of putting together an interaction online. And once you're not scared of those two things, of having an opinion and being able to manipulate things, then I think you're ready to go. If you've observed the world, if you've been a learner yourself, if you've had some experience with instructional design, that you don't have to be, I don't think you have to be a trained instructional designer It helps, but when I went to graduate school, my grandmother, I was having conversations with my grandmother, and almost everything I learned, she sort of knew from living for 80 years and being a wise and responsive person. So much of good instruction is being observant and sensitive to how people behave and how they learn and how they interact, and being able to capture that in your own writing and in your own design. And so I think it's okay for anybody to approach this, but approaching it with an openness of mind and an awareness of what works, and we'll develop that further. But as far as a particular academic background, it doesn't matter. Many of the best e-learning designers I know have come from teaching English or something entirely different, being an architect. So.
I was an English teacher myself before becoming an instructional designer.
I was thinking of you as I said that, Ellen.
Thanks, Ethan. Okay, we have a couple more questions coming in. We have one question: can you take one course, or do you take all four? And this is in specific reference to the ACIP program. Do we offer one course at a time, or do we offer it as kind of one big 4-course program?
Sure, I can answer that. We are offering the ACIP program as a collection of 4 courses. You're only taking one of them at a time, and they are spread out over about 3 months. But what we've tried to do in the design of this program is kind of interleave theory and building back and forth with the idea that you're going to spend some time, just a couple weeks in between each one of these courses before you dive back in and try to apply either the learning theory back into the tool, or think a little bit about how you're going to take your challenges and start designing something new, and pulling that all through together over 3 months, spaced just a little bit apart, I think has a lot of value. So we're currently offering this program as one longer extended experience. But we will be launching electives that sit on top of this program that will be offered as kind of one-off courses that you can attend.
All right, thanks, Christopher. This one's another, I think, one for maybe both of you, Christopher, and for Ethan. Kayla, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but Kayla asked, you mentioned Storyline, but is Adobe Captivate also acceptable for this program? Ethan, I think you touched on that earlier. Can you recap that?
Yeah, so far we've only had cohorts for Storyline, but our intention is that as the groups form and we get more people lined up, that we can have separate cohorts, to have one, have them alternate, or depending on the demand, but at any rate offer both. So far, but at any given 102 course, the software course will be just one tool or the other. We're not teaching both in the same experience, because our intention is to highlight the features of each tool that are particularly important, and they don't happen to be the same, actually. You do different things, you do things a little bit differently depending on which tool you're using. And so right now, the January 1st course is, I think we are targeting it as another Storyline offering. The one that starts in February, we haven't determined yet. It's sort of based on the people who register and how we can spread them out. If we get a bunch of people who want Captivate, then it's likely that will be a Captivate course. Yes, the answer is yes, we're going to do both, but we just have to be sensitive about figuring out which courses will be focused on which tool.
Okay, Thanks, Ethan. I think we have at least one more question. So if you have a burning question that you haven't had a chance to answer, last chance to type it into the chat. And while you do that, we'll ask another for Ethan and for Christopher. You touched on this earlier, but I was hoping we could go through it again. How much time does each course take? So we've talked about how the whole program takes about 3 months start to finish. We've interleaved practice along with sessions, and that, that's spaced out over those 3 months. But if we're going to look at one course at a time, about how many hours per week are you looking at, and how does that look in terms of how the sessions are structured?
Yeah, well, I can tell you about the one we are in right now. Each week there are 2 2-hour sessions. So for instance, we met on Mondays and Thursdays, so for 2 hours. And then there were assignments or work to be done between sessions, that the target was that it shouldn't take more than an hour between sessions on average. Some were bigger and some were smaller. We encourage you to spend whatever time necessary. And some of my students in the software class were going back just for their own confidence and rebuilding exactly what we did in class. So they, of course, took a little bit more time. But our hope is the 2 2-hour sessions each week with about another hour outside of class for each. And so that's spread out over 3 weeks. So that it takes about 18 total hours for one of the regular classes. Is that right? Yeah, my math did right. Now, it turned out this one straddled Thanksgiving, so it actually took more than a footprint of 3 weeks. It took about 5 weeks because we had 2 weeks out in the middle because of the holidays. But in general, though, the time that you're engaged in the course is about 6 2-hour sessions with a moderate amount of homework time.
Okay. So just thinking out loud, if we're comparing, one course to a 2-day certificate program, if your 2-day certificate program has 8 hours of class time, you're looking at something approximately the same per course in the ACIP program. Do you think that's a fair way of characterizing it, Ethan?
Yeah, it is. We have about 6 hours of, if you divide it in 2 as a 2-day session, you have about 6 hours of in-class time and about 2 hours each day of additional time. And so that adds up to about 8 hours of total time per day, and adding up to the same amount you'd have in a certificate of a live session.
Okay.
We do find.
All right, well, thanks for going through that.
Yeah. I was going to say, we do think it's actually a lot more effective. There's a thing called the spacing effect in learning, that if there is space between your exposure to content, it greatly increases the effectiveness and the longevity of that information. So again, that's why it's a trade-off on the format, because I still find that having direct contact creates more flexibility and more connection. But having 6 weeks on which to mull over some new ideas is a huge advantage over having to do it in 2 days when you don't have time to reflect on the new information you're learning. So.
Yeah, it's important to instructionally design the instructional design courses.
Right.
Okay. So I think we're about at time. I don't see any more questions coming in through chat, but for those of you who hung on to the end, if you have any questions that occur to you later today or anytime, feel free to reach out to us. You can contact us from the Allen Academy website. That's allenacademy.com. And hopefully we'll hear from you. Suggestions too about what you need in the program and how to see it develop. We don't just want to hear from you about questions on our current program. If you have ideas for where you'd like to see the Allen Academy evolve, let us know. We want to hear your ideas and your input. We want to do our best to serve the industry. So thank you for joining today. Thank you for your questions and for your feedback, and happy holidays.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ethan. Bye.